Hello YouTube and welcome back to my YouTube channel as we continue the march to Halloween. And in today's video we are going to be talking about a way I would have made Halloween 2018. If you know anything about me, Halloween 2018 is my second favorite Halloween movie of all time. It is a amazing movie. But now that the movie's been out for almost 10 years, I have noticed some major problems with it, some changes I would make, and so on and so forth. And recently I watched a video getting my mind refreshed on what was originally going to be the new Halloween movie before 2018 became a thing, which was Halloween Returns. And ultimately it had me thinking about, well, what could have been another way that they could have done a follow-up to the original Halloween and it felt more like an actual follow-up to the original Halloween? Because even though Halloween 2 is not canon in Halloween 2018, the portrayal of Laurie's character and the story that they were going with very much came off in the sense of like Halloween 2 still canon, which that's one of the problems like with Halloween 2018 is that the story didn't make much sense for Halloween 2 to not be canon. But if you keep Halloween 2 canon, then the story makes a whole lot more sense, and Michael being locked up again makes a whole lot more sense. But that's not the route they took, and Laurie's character, as I said, did not make a whole lot of sense in Halloween 2018 when only the original movie was canon. So in this video we're going to be talking about more or less how Halloween 2018 could have been a better sequel and could have just overall felt like a more natural follow-up to the original 1978 Halloween. So first things first, the ending of the original Halloween, or well, actually, hold on, I'll get to that in a minute, but the opening credits, I would do them exactly the same as the original. Keep it exactly the same, or you could keep the same opening credits that we got in 2018 Halloween. That was fine too. And by the way, I would call the movie Halloween Returns. That was a great name for that one proposed idea back in 2015. Man, that was such a great idea. But yeah, definitely the classic jack-o'-lantern opening, just like the original movie. But as you get close to the jack-o'-lantern, I would then begin playing, Dr. Loomis shooting Michael 6 times, and then we would jump immediately to that night where we would once again see Dr. Loomis, pump the final shots into Michael, him fall out the window, and then Laurie asks Loomis, was that the boogeyman? And then Loomis walks over and Michael's body is gone, with Loomis looking out and Laurie crying. And then, we would jump to 40 years later. And one problem that I have with Halloween 2018 is how it kind of nullified the ending of the original Halloween movie by having Michael being captured. The whole point of the ending of the original was to be like, oh my goodness, this guy's immortal. But Halloween 2018 completely refutes that by saying like, yeah, he took 6 slugs, but he was arrested not long later, to where it just completely, to me, within the Halloween 2018 timeline, it just completely undermines the whole purpose of the original movie's ending, and it just really, really hurt it. And I know some would argue, well, it wouldn't make sense for Michael to just disappear for 4 decades after getting shot 6 times, but to me, narratively, that actually makes a lot more sense. Michael's shot 6 times, he disappears into the darkness for 40 years, and it's described that Dr. Loomis spent the last 20 years of his life hunting Michael day in, day out, all over the country, trying to find Michael, trying to find whatever lead he could, but there was just no trace of Michael after that night in 1978. It's almost like Michael didn't even exist anymore. So we would still bring back Jamie Lee Curtis to be Laurie Strode, and her character would be normal. Yes, she definitely has the trauma that she experienced on that night in 1978, but we will see that Laurie has overcame that trauma. She is a victims abuse counselor. She is living a good life. She has a daughter. She has a granddaughter. She's married. Life is good. She struggled with things like alcohol and drugs and all that in the years after her encounter with Michael Myers, but ultimately she overcame it all and became a better person and put together an amazing life for herself. Her granddaughter's going to graduate from high school soon, and Laurie just has a perfect life. Laurie is living the American dream, and the dream that every person that went through something traumatic would want. So Laurie is very much normal. She's a kind, funny, but also very sincere and likable character in the movie. And she's very humble. She's very open about her story. There are focus group scenes in the movie as we get acquainted to what Laurie's been up to. We get acquainted with Laurie's family, which I would still personally cast Laurie's family the exact same, and I would use the guy that played Officer Hawkins to be Laurie's husband, and I would just use these characters. Now, our other main characters in terms of our main teen characters would be Allison still. We'd still have her boyfriend, and then maybe one other girl, that Vicky, and that one guy, I forget what the flip his name was, Oscar, that's his name. We'll keep those characters. They'd be your main teen characters, and just give these characters time to develop. Literally use the first 20-25 minutes of the movie to kind of just set the stage. Let us get to know these characters. Let us get reintroduced to Laurie Strode and see what kind of person she has become. But a nightmare she is about to relive. So on October 30th, Michael Myers returns. One of the friends of Allison's friend group is violently murdered, specifically Vicky and her boyfriend. That entire scene that we see in Halloween 2018 where they're killed, we see some version of that in this movie, and this is the first time we see Michael in the film killing them in very violent, traditionally Michael Myers-esque ways. Now, as far as the look for Michael in this movie, I would still have him be older. I would still have him be played by James Jude Courtney, but I would want to keep the mask exactly the same as a 1978 mask. I basically just use the the mask that they used in the Halloween Kills flashbacks. Even though I love the 2018 mask, and I know technically, realistically, it would make sense for us to have the 2018 mask, but I don't know, something about it being like the same mask, or a mask that's very similar to the mask from 78, to me just, would hit really well with this idea for a sequel to the original Halloween 40 years later. So, after this murder takes place, Allison and her friends that are still alive are, they're reeling from it, they're hurting from it, and Haddonfield police are scrambling to find out what the world happened. And, the sheriff is like, I have no idea. I've never seen such violence like this before. But this is where I would bring back Sheriff Brackett for this movie, now retired. He would recognize what's happening, and he would tell the sheriff that it's got to be Michael Myers. He hasn't been seen in 40 years. He's still wanted. His case is more or less a cold case, but Sheriff Barker does not believe it because, last they know of Michael, he was shot 6 times and disappeared. It's been 4 decades. What on earth could he have been doing during all that time? He's old. He's decrepit. There's no way that he could still be around. But Brackett would tell Barker, and I thought Michael wasn't a threat 40 years ago, and my daughter died because I didn't take Loomis's warning seriously. So the town ultimately is not informed about the potential of a serial killer from 40 years ago that many people, with the exception of Brackett and Laurie and some people that have really studied the history of Haddonfield, don't even remember. And the Myers house, it's still very prevalent in the town, but no one really cares about it anymore. They just look at it as an abandoned house. Only those from that night remember what that house is. So time goes on, and eventually Michael Myers, just like in the original movie, you feel his presence in every single scene going forward from the first time we see him. You feel his presence in every scene. Even in the scenes that he's not there, you think he's there. There's the quick shot and you miss some kind of thing. You have the scenes where all you see is the mask, and you just see a lot of Michael stalking around town, stalking Allison and her friends, and you see Laurie, with her focus group, and there's even a scene where Michael is stalking them in broad daylight. Like, Michael is just back to being the stalker that we knew and loved him to be in the original Halloween movie. So eventually Michael would begin picking off Allison's friends. He would kill Oscar. He would kill Allison's boyfriend. He would kill everyone except for Allison, and eventually Allison would be chased by the Shape, but would ultimately escape with the police arriving. And she would say, once they get to the police station and Laurie and her mother is there, they ask her what happened, and she said, a man in a white mask attacked me. He killed my friends. And Laurie has this look of fear come across her face as she almost faints from hearing that description, as it very much sounds like the same Shape that stalked and killed her friends and would have killed her if it wasn't for Dr. Loomis 40 years earlier. And Laurie tries to keep herself composed, but then when Brackett walks in and he says, he heard about what happened and that more bodies have been discovered in the park of the town, and they need to go there, and they all go there, and they see these off-screen kills of, brutally murdered and mangled corpses in this park wearing like all these different masks, and it can be the Halloween 3 mask if you really want that reference. And Laurie is filled with fear, and she's like, he's back. Michael Myers is back. And the sheriff is still very hesitant because he doesn't have the evidence to say that it's Michael Myers, to where he can't call in the FBI. And that's even a line that he says, like, look, you guys remember this. You all know who Michael is, and based on what y'all tell me, this very much is his MO. Maybe he is back, but I don't have the evidence to bring in the FBI to get them in on this investigation. So we, the town, we, the police, will have to deal with this ourselves. And basically you see the town, the police, come together. You see mobs being formed to hunt down this shape that has secretly been living amongst the town quietly for the last 40 years, this apex predator that has finally come out of the shadows after 4 decades and is once again hungry for blood. But the town is always a step behind Michael. Laurie is hunting, Brackett is hunting, but Michael is always a step ahead, always one step ahead. And eventually we would get to the climax of the movie, which would be the inevitable showdown between Michael and Laurie. Michael nearly kills Karen, Laurie's daughter, and Laurie, though, would arrive at the house that Karen is at to keep her safe, and Laurie tells Karen to get out of there, and she goes to the police station where it's safe, where the granddaughter is at, and Laurie faces down Michael. It's a very suspenseful battle, but Laurie, she's not going to hide from Michael like she did 4 decades ago. She's going to fight. She struggles in the fight. She is stabbed. She is choked. She is punched. But she keeps on fighting, and she gets Michael down. But like 40 years ago, Michael keeps getting up. He gets stabbed. He sits up. He's stabbed in the eye. He sits up. Like, he survives everything. And eventually, their battle comes out onto the front lawn of the Strode residence, and Laurie goes to stab Michael, but Michael blocks it. But then all of a sudden, police swarm the area. They have Michael and the whole house surrounded with their guns pointed at Michael, and you see Karen there that directed them to the Strode residence, and they order Michael to let Laurie go, and Michael, just stares at Laurie with his black eyes, and Michael just does his head tilt, and eventually, Brackett just orders for them to open fire, and Barker agrees, and they open fire on Michael as Laurie drops to the ground, taking cover, and a whole firing squad blows Michael away, and Michael Myers, is blown away. He stands there. The shape just stands there, motionless, taking the bullets, taking the firing squad, blowing him away, and eventually Michael falls to the ground, dead. And it seems that the nightmare of Michael Myers has finally come to an end. So Michael is on the ground. He's dead after the firing squad blew him away. And Laurie, reunites with her daughter and her granddaughter. And Laurie says, it's over. It's finally over. He's dead, no more. And, the town, they all, are all reeling and celebrating the fact that Michael Myers is dead, and they, all turn around to turn away from the shape, making sure Laurie is okay and all that. And, Barker orders a few officers to stay and say, take Michael's body and take it to the coroner's office and let's get an autopsy done and then ultimately get his body cremated. Well, we see Laurie and her family, Brackett, Barker, we see all of them leave, and it seems that's it. It's a hopeful music, hopeful vibe that it's all over, but then we end up cutting back to where Michael's body was laying, and just like in the original movie, Michael's body has vanished, and there are two bodies laying where Michael's body should be, and it's the two bodies of the officers that Barker gave the order to take Michael's body away. Michael killed them, and Michael Myers has escaped once again into the darkness. And the final thing that we see, as we, just like in the original movie, revisit every location that we see with the classic John Carpenter Halloween theme playing and us hearing Michael breathing, the last thing we see is the Myers house, indicating that Michael has returned home and he is still alive. The evil has lurked amongst the town in silence, not striking, for 4 decades, but then came out of hiding and struck again. And just like that, like a ghost, he is gone once again. And that would be the ending to Halloween Returns, and it really wouldn't need a sequel. If you want to do a sequel, you could, but there really wouldn't be a need for a sequel. Basically, this movie is more or less, just a one-off. Like, Michael Myers was shot 6 times 40 years ago. He disappeared into the darkness and then all of a sudden returns again 4 decades later, and just as quickly as he returned, even quicker, he's gone into the darkness again, once again leaving a trail of devastation and bloodshed behind him. And it would leave a lot to the imagination of, like, how does Laurie react when she learns that Michael didn't die? What becomes of her children? Does Laurie become, obsessed like Dr. Loomis did? Like, does Michael ever come back again? Does he come back a year later, 20 years later? Like, we see that Michael has aged, but can he die? Like, it would very much keep the question around Michael Myers' mortality intact that the original movie gave us. Like, we see, okay, he can age, but he's been shot, he's been stabbed, but he's still alive. The things that would kill a normal man, he's still alive. What is he? And that would be the perfect question I'd want the audience to leave this movie with, asking themselves, what is Michael Myers? And I feel like if you do a sequel, you would have to explain what is Michael Myers. And I don't know if I necessarily would want this idea to go full blown into the supernatural territory. I'd rather it be left up to the imagination. I'm not against supernatural Michael Myers, but the problem that the David Gordon Green trilogy made, it couldn't make up its mind, was Michael supernatural or not. Even 2018 couldn't make up its mind. Whereas this movie very much sticks to what the original movie was and changes nothing from the original movie, and this very much feels like a natural follow-up to the original Halloween with a very similar vibe. I would even have the movie be shot in a very similar way to the way Irwin Yablon, shot the original Halloween movie. Even if you gotta do the whole movie on a soundstage like the Halloween Kills flashbacks were done, just so you can kind of recapture that look of the town, almost like it hasn't aged in the 40 years, then do that. I very much want this movie to feel as much like the original Halloween as possible, because at the end of the day, if you're doing a sequel to the greatest horror movie of all time, it needs to feel like that same movie, even if it is 40 years later, 50 years later, 60 years later. Regardless, it needs to feel the same. So, all in all, if I were to have been making Halloween 2018, that's how I would have made it. Again, I love Halloween 2018. Again, it's my second favorite Halloween movie in the entire franchise, but I'll admit I have soured on it a little bit over the years, because with the story they were telling, they really should have kept Halloween 2 canon, because it would have made the story flow a lot better. Michael's incarceration would make a lot more sense. Laurie's paranoia would make a lot more sense. Her living in a daggum bunker would make much more sense. And the generational trauma story would hit so much more. And ultimately, Michael would, and the town, eventually in the sequels, like in Halloween Kills, going absolutely insane, would make sense. It would make perfect sense because of what Michael Myers did, both in the original and in Halloween 2. Whereas if you're going to do only a sequel to the original movie, to me, the idea that I proposed is to me a much, much, much better follow-up to the original Halloween movie. And honestly, even though some people are so against Jamie Lee Curtis coming back to the Halloween franchise, I would be for it. And if they wanted to do a 50th anniversary Halloween movie and they do it in a way like this idea I just presented here would do it, I would be all in on it. I would be very, very excited for that. But all in all, that is how, if I was doing a sequel to the original Halloween back in 2018 like they did, this is how I would have fixed Halloween 2018. No sequels to the movie, no nothing. Just this one-off anniversary film, and Michael Myers is back, and similar to Michael in the movie, just as quickly as he returned, he's gone again, making you crave Michael Myers more. And yeah, so I thank you all for watching this video. And if you want to check out my other Halloween movie videos, there should be a playlist by the time anybody views this video. And with all that being said, thank you all for watching, and God bless you all.